תמיד תמיד לעולם ועד. יזבח שמך בפי כוחך, תמיד תמיד לעולם ועד. יזבח שמך בפי כוחך, תמיד תמיד לעולם ועד. Do we try a different option?
I mean, this is what I've done. You can try something else where I can astral.
Probably the best option, yeah. He's
not there. Maybe you want to go upstairs.
Hello. Hi. We just haven't yet started Alshech, even though we're 25 minutes late. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe it. Yeah.
That's what you said. That's weird.
I think Shlomo should go home and have a treat from the cupboard. Ooh. Good luck, sorry. You too. Bye. Hi everyone, we're back again in the Alshech Academy in Tzfat, and we're going to be learning Parashat Vayeshev, the Holy Alshech HaKadosh. And this week's parasha is one of the deepest, most mysterious parashas in the entire Torah and Sefer Bereshit, the story of our forefathers. And we have the story of Yosef HaTzadik and all the strange dreams and the story that happened with his brothers and Rav Moshe is going to take us into, pardon me, into the hidden meaning and events that happened in this period of our forefathers' history. So without further ado, Rav Moshe is going to take us into the first pasuk of the parasha and break it apart, break it down as he does. The pasuk starts off, Parashat Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Yaakov settled in the land of his father's dwelling, in the land of Canaan. Now the pasuk continues, Ele toldot Yaakov, these are the children of Yaakov. Yosef was 17, and etc. The story with Yosef, his dreams, the brothers, etc., how the whole event unfolded, where he was sold into slavery, etc. So the question Rav Moshe is going to ask us here is, what is this pasuk Vayeshev Yaakov doing here? We know that Yaakov was in the land of Canaan. We already saw this last week. He came back from Haran, the whole eventful journey where he met Esav, and he settled in Canaan. He settled first in Shechem, and then in Bethel, and etc. So what is this Vayeshev Yaakov? Why are we mentioning again Yaakov settling in Eretz Canaan, and how is that connected to the following events that are going to be mentioned in this parasha? That's what Moshe is going to ask, and he says, Pasuk zeh yira'eh bilti makushar. This pasuk seems completely out of context and unneeded, and it seems to be hard to place the flow of the psukim in which this pasuk is needed, and for what purpose it stands. So Rav Moshe explains the following: Lo lamala v'lo lamata. It doesn't seem to be concluding the previous subject, which was the Esav's family and Esav's kingdom story, and it doesn't also seem to be connected directly to the story of Yosef and his brothers. So, V'hinei amru rabbeinu zal bikesh Yaakov leshev b'shalva. Yeah, I got sorted it.
Okay, it's all good. Okay, thank you.
So the rabbis actually, the way the rabbis explain this is by saying that Vayeshev Yaakov is actually an introduction to the following story of Yosef being sold into slavery, and it's actually connected to the story of Yosef's being sold. Why? Because the Midrash, Rashi brings the Midrash Rabbah, Bikesh Yaakov leshev b'shalva. Yaakov wanted to, or Yaakov requested to, just sit and settle peacefully. Kafatz alav rugzo shel Yosef. However, instead, the agonizing story of Yosef jumped upon him and came and prevented his peaceful dwelling. And the Midrash finishes off and says a general rule: Lo dayan letzadikim. It's kind of complaining. The Midrash is saying, I don't get these tzadikim. Is it not enough for them what they have prepared for them in the world to come? That they also want to live peacefully in this world. So that's the Midrash that Rashi brings. That Vayeshev Yaakov wanted to settle. Vayeshev is like, he wants to settle, he wants to feel comfortable, feel at home. And the fact that he wanted to settle, that itself led to the fact that Yosef was abducted and sold, because it's the way Hashem deals with tzaddikim, where he doesn't let them be peaceful in this world. He wants them to have it all in the world to come. And we're going to see that Rav Moshe is going to explore this idea and the depth that it includes about how important it is that tzaddikim's role in this world and in the world to come. So there says Rav Moshe, El It seems that the rabbis, the way they're explaining it, is that this introductory pasuk is an actual introduction. It's seen as an introductory pasuk into the following events. Ach adayin kashe b'ma'amaram. We're not understanding. This is difficult to understand Midrash. I mean, this is a question that I think everybody has on the tip of their tongue, or at least in the back of their mind when they read this Rashi. And it seems to be that the Midrash has this issue with tzaddikim wanting to have a peaceful life. He's like, don't you get that your peace is supposed to come in the world to come? Why are you expecting it here? Why are you expecting it in Olam Hazeh? But the question is, as Ramosha, we know that there's a concept called getting the main reward in Olam Haba, but peroten, the dividends, the extras, the yields of the sachar, can bear fruit in this world. So it's not inevitable that the tzaddik has to suffer in this world. Why can't he have the perot? Why can't he have a little bit of a taster of his mitzvot in this world already? Says Ramosha, this is what Ramosha is going to say now. Achadayin kashem amaram. Why does the tzaddik need to be punished for wanting to have peace in this world? Ki lama lo yochal perot Torah u'mitzvot ba'olam hazeh. Va'keren la'olam haba, as we say in the Breita that we say in these Ashkenazim say in the Birkat Torah, we say elu dvarim she'adam ochel perotem ba'olam hazeh. You can take the dividends and live off it in this world. Va'keren, and the principle, the main sachar, is la'olam haba. So what is this thing that the Midrash seems to be implying, that a tzaddik can't have it both ways? You can't have the cake and eat it. Either you have it here or you have it there. So it says Ramosha as follows: V'hinei shamati omrim, ki zeh teretz ba'omro l'shon bakasha. So Ramosha is going to say that the reason why Yaakov was being punished not to have peace in this world was because it doesn't say he wanted to have peace. He wanted to settle peacefully. It says bikesh. Ba'omro bikesh v'lo omar ratzah. So what does that mean? You mustn't you mustn't actually put an effort into having peace in this world. The tzaddik isn't supposed to focus and kind of invest resources for his peaceful residing in this world. We're expecting the tzaddik to invest his entire consciousness and effort into next worldly matters. So the fact that it says Bikesh Yaakov, it means that he actually went after it. He was involved in pursuing shalva in this world, and that's what we don't like about it. And that's what we're saying. Why are you investing emotional effort into this? You're allowed to want it. You're allowed to want it because everyone's allowed to want to have a peaceful life. But the question is, how much are you investing? How much are you prioritizing the peace in this world? All the while you're a tzaddik and you know that the world to come is the time of reaping rewards, right? Especially because we know that even anyone that wants to be successful in any field needs to invest tirelessly in the goal. And if someone doesn't have the goal in mind, they're not getting anywhere. And you got to have this very clear vision of where you want to go and the belief in the value of the goal, and have single-minded focus. Raise a sharp focus. The more a person's focused in the goal, and the more they believe that is the only value, then they're going to get there. If you want to be a billionaire, you've got to be focused on that. And you can't be busy, redecorating your house if you really want to be a billionaire. You've got to be, if you can happen to move into a nicer place, but you can't put emotional effort into it. So Yaakov Avinu, if he's razor focused on Olam Haba, we don't like, the Midrash is complaining and holds it against him for being mevakesh shalva, putting effort into it and going after it. But that's one answer that Ramosha brings from others. But he says, Ramosha doesn't like this. That Ramosha says that when you try and make a difference of the word bikesh and ratzah, meaning whether he went after it or just wanted it passively, that isn't true in the language of the Midrash. Ramosha says, if you are well versed in the linguistics of Midrashim, you would know that bikesh and ratzah are used interchangeably, and when the Midrash wants to say that he wanted something, it would use the word bikesh, and it does not imply that there was any extra effort put into it. It just means that he wanted that. That was his bikesh. Doesn't mean he went after it. It just means that he wanted. That was his. He requested it. It was an inner request that he wanted to have, but that doesn't imply that he put any unnecessary focus on it. So that's why Rav Moshe is going to suggest another explanation why Yaakov Avinu isn't supposed to be living peacefully in this world. Why can't he have, a peaceful life in this world and Olam Haba? That's the best of both worlds. Why can't he have the best of both worlds? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. Ashvat tirutz ha'inyan. Let me suggest to you an answer, says Rav Moshe. B'hatimo lomar lo dayan. When the midrash finishes off and says finish the end statement of the midrash. Kizulat hayitur. Besides the fact that the midrash is unnecessarily expansive, ra'ui lasim lev elamro mashem metukan lehem v'lo amar mashem mezuman lehem v'kayotze b'lashonot elu. So the midrash says that tzaddikim, not only are they not satisfied, it isn't sufficient to them what they have prepared for them in Olam Haba. And the wording that the midrash uses to describe what they have prepared for them in Olam Haba doesn't say mashem mezuman lehem, which would mean the classic word for preparation. It says mashem metukan. And metukan seems to be something that's fixed. It means the fixed usually means something that was lacking and it was altered into a more perfect state. So what are we referring to here when we say that Yaakov has his portion in the world to come has been fixed for him, has been mended? In which way was it altered to perfection? Tikkun means that it used to be something imperfect and that was perfected. So says Rav Moshe the following idea, that this is a very interesting answer to lots of the questions. One of the biggest philosophical question we have in the Tanakh, which is why the righteous suffer, and why we see that the most God-fearing Jews don't necessarily have a good life. So he says, we find in our history many righteous tzaddikim. They didn't get the dividends and the yields of their mitzvot they did, even though we are promised that we can live off the yields of the sachar in this world and have a decent life. For example, Rabbi Chanina Mendoza, we find he was very poor. Rabbi Elazar ben Pedat, we find, was also very poor, and he like the stories we see in the Gemara about these tzaddikim, about their level of poverty. The Kadomeyan and others as well. He brings here Rabbah, Rav Chisda, and others. Okay, so why is this so? Why is this phenomenon found of tzaddikim that are living difficult lives? What has happened? Where did all of their yields of the sachar, of the Torah and good deeds, where has it gone? So there's a midrash in Tehillim that says the following: the Torah went before Hashem and said the following: Bismola osher v'chavod. It says, Ki orech yamim bimina. To the right of the Torah is long life. Bismola, to the left of the Torah, is osher v'chavod, riches and honor. So the Torah came to Hashem and said, you promised me that anyone that surrounds himself with Torah, that lives a Torah life, that toils in Torah, will have riches and honor. So the Torah complained to Hashem and said, Lama banai aniyim. Why are my children poor? Meaning, why are the people that toil in me, that make me their lives, why are they poor? And the Torah is demanding that Torah students should be rich. Vehishiv, and the Hashem replied to the Torah and said, Lahanchil ohava yesh. I give a inheritance or a portion to my beloved ones. Yesh, I give them yesh. As we know, this is actually one of the midrash that says on this that every tzaddik gets yesh olamot, which is 310 shy olamot, and that Hashem is going to give every tzaddik 310 worlds in Olam Haba. So that was Hashem's answer. The Torah is complaining that Torah scholars are poor, and Hashem replies, now is not the time. I'm going to give them what they deserve in Olam Haba. Says Ramoshe, Umazot Shuva. What is that? What kind of answer is this? Yanchilem, the same question applies in this midrash. Yanchilem akerem b'olam haba, v'apirot b'olam hazeh. Give them the main principle in olam haba, but they can get the dividends and the yields in this world. Achusha omer hu yitbarach. Hashem is telling the Torah the following: Ima achilem pirot b'olam hazeh. If they take the dividends and use it up in this world, yilchu pirotem b'mashu hevel. The entire payoffs and dividends and yields will go for worthless stuff, which is the good stuff that is valuable in this world. Not as what actually has substance. So basically Hashem is saying anyone that learns Torah obviously knows what's real. Torah gives a person a sense of inner knowledge and wisdom to what is valuable and what isn't. So the person learning Torah knows that what he wants really, even not only the principle of the Sechar, even the payoffs he wants to be reinvested into Olam Haba. And that's why Hashem does a favor to the tzaddikim, and he reinvests all of the dividends back into Olam Haba, that the tzaddikim should have only real pleasure and only real Sechar, and none of the Sechar that is useless. Yaakov wanted to what? He wanted to live peacefully. But Hashem kept him his sachar in Olam Haba. So we're saying, why can't he have a peaceful life? It isn't not enough for them what has been fixed for them. What does it mean what has been fixed for them? Because Hashem takes the physical, this worldly sachar, and he fixes it and elevates it into a more valuable sachar, which is Olam Haba. That's what it means Mashem Metukan. When you take something that is of lesser value and you're able to magically turn the soil into gold, that means that it's been fixed. So Hashem takes the Olam Hazeh sachar and fixes it into Olam Haba, which is why Yaakov now can't expect, or the real tzaddikim don't expect anything in this world, because they know that Hashem is doing them a favor. Hashem fixes it up, and as a tov ruchani, it becomes from physical sachar back into spiritual sachar. There is no greater fixing than that. Therefore, if after that transfer they still want to have good in this world, then you've basically not realized what's happening here, and that's why you can't expect to have that. So now this is the midrash. This is a nice pshat that Rosh is telling us based on the midrash and Rashi of what Vayeshev Yaakov is. Vayeshev Yaakov is an introductory statement describing why Yaakov had to go through all of this pain with his sons and specifically Yosef, because this is how it works. Hashem takes even the most basic human wish to live a peaceful life without too much stress and anxiety and suffering, and takes even that and turns that into pure bliss in Olam Haba, spiritual pleasure. And therefore in this world the tzaddikim remain full of suffering because they're prepared to give it in and transfer it and do the exchange. But now Ramosha is going to say, what about al derech pshat? How are we going to explain Vayeshev Yaakov not according to the Midrash and the Rashi? So says Ramosha, Gam ken el mashal lamata. It's also connected. It's also an introduction to the psukim that follow it. Ya'amer b'sam lev el amra be'eretz megurei aviv. So now we're going to explain this introductory pasuk in a different way. And first we're going to pay attention to the term the pasuk uses, be'eretz megurei aviv, that Yaakov settled in the land of his father's dwelling, in the land of Canaan. Why can't he just say, and Yaakov dwelled in Eretz Canaan? What is the significance of mentioning that this is the place where his father dwelled? So now Ramosha is quoting himself in the earlier parasha Lech Lecha, when Avraham Avinu had the Brit Min Abtarim experience with Hashem, where Hashem told him, you should know that your offspring will be a foreigner, will be a ger, will be an alien in a land that is not theirs. But the pasuk starts off, Ki ger yezaracha be'eret lo lahem. So ger is singular, and yeh is singular, and then it says be'eret lo lahem va'avadum ve'inu otam. It's talking about plural. So why does the pasuk start off singular and move into plural? Why doesn't it say Ki gerim yiyu zaracha be'eretz lo lahem? Shera'u lashit lev eli kansa b'lashon yachid v'tzeita b'lashon arbit v'chen nichnas begerut v'yatsa b'avdut ve'inui. Starts off just saying that they're going to be aliens, they're going to be exiled in a land that isn't theirs, and then it gets quickly progresses into something more severe by saying that they're going to be subjugated and given suffering. So that's a progression. So what's this referring to? So Ramosha is referring to two stages. Achora ki miyitzchak matchil ha'arba'amot shana. As we know, the Jews weren't actually in Egypt for 400 years, only 210. So when did the 400 years take place? The 400 years took place from the beginning of the birth of Yitzchak. And that wasn't real suffering in terms of subjugation and suffering. Rather, it was gerut ba'alma. It was being in a land where you're not feeling at home, where you're not given citizens' rights. You don't feel part of the nation. So Yitzchak himself, while he lived in the land of Canaan, he lived there, but he wasn't at home. He wasn't given rights as a citizen, and that was already the beginning of the process of the exile. Amar Yodea Teda. So Hashem, this is Ramosha quoting himself from Parashat Lech Lecha. He says, Yodea Teda, you should know two things, Yodoa and Teda. First of all, Kiger Yezaracha. Your son, already from your son's birth, he's going to be a foreigner in his own land. Rugerut v'tiltul ba'alma. He's not going to be suffering or be subjugated under a king. Rather, he's just going to be a foreigner in his own land. He's going to have to move around, not have his own real estate, not have his own inheritance and fixed land, and that will be the beginning of the exile of 400 years. From the birth of Yitzchak, which is considered Avram's offspring. Terem hagiyam lechal ribui. This is why here at this stage it talks in singular form, because it's talking about Avram's offspring when they're still individuals, when they're not yet become a large family or a mini nation. 12, 70, 600,000, which is already a family become a nation. Once they already become they start becoming multiplying and being fruitful in the land of Egypt, then then they're going to be given suffering and subjugation. Between the two, the suffering and also the foreignness in the land of Israel together, that makes 400. Another explanation this will help us understand is a pasuk in the beginning of Parashat Toldot, when Yitzchak was considering moving out of Israel when there was a famine. Hashem told him, "Shchon ba'aretz, stay in the land, don't leave the land." And then it says, "Gur ba'aretz is us, dwell in this land." So why does he say stay here and settle here, and then he says dwell here? So what does that mean? Why does it say shchon, which is more of a fixed type of like resting, and gur means like just be here as a foreigner? So we're saying that's what Hashem's telling Yitzchak. I'm telling you not to leave the land, but don't stay in the land as a landowner, because that would mean you're not living the exile life that you're supposed to be living. So you should stay in the land, but in a way of a gur, of a ger, of a alien, a foreigner, not a indigenous man. After Hashem told him to stay in the land, Yitzchak can ask, how can I live here in a fixed way? You said, you decreed that Avram's children will have to be foreigners. However, the land of Canaan is ours. How is this going to count as part of the exile? Amar gur nechshev ger, remain a foreigner be'eretz hazot while you're in this land. It's not yet yours. In the future, it's going to be yours. In the future, this will be your homeland. Not yet now. So now this is the two introductions that Moshe gave us of this concept, where the Avot, Yitzchak and Yaakov, had to stay in the land in a way that they're fulfilling the exile while they're in the homeland. This is also true to Yaakov. If he would have a peaceful life, living in the land of Canaan, the story, the thread of the story of the exile would have ended. You wouldn't be able to count 400 consecutive years. And that would be a great loss, because you'd have to start counting 400 years again. So we can never have Yaakov ever being fully comfortable at any stage of his life, in order not to have to pay the price of 400 years of real exile. This is why the pasuk starts off, Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov, he settled b'yishuv b'shalva be'eretz aviv. He lived in the land, in the same land that his father lived in, which is be'eretz megurei aviv. Megurei is like the same word as ger, right? The place that he dwelled, that he didn't settle. He was living there, but in a non-fixed way. Even for him, it was considered not his land. Eretz Canaan, it was still the land of Canaan. It wasn't Eretz Israel yet. But often, if his settling in the land would have been too peaceful, that would have been a problem. Which is why the next pasuk starts off straight away. Ele toldot Yaakov. How do we know that Yaakov didn't live peacefully? That we can consider his life in Israel as a galut, part of the galut. The story that happened with Yosef, when this whole thing started happening, where Yaakov was suffering in his own land, and that took away the problem of him being too peaceful. So it's like we're kind of justifying or giving reason for the following events, which seem to be, why does Yaakov have to suffer this much? Why couldn't he just have a few years of peace? And this is really the explanation of what's to come. It's like Rav Hirsch even says, interestingly, that the word megurei in the pasuk says lo taguru mipnei ish. You shouldn't fear. Talking to judges, they shouldn't fear powerful people that come to be judged by them. So you see that the lashon of gur means to fear. Kenya guroti, right? So he says that, meaning that the ger is always scared, because he doesn't feel comfortable. He's always on the edge, because he doesn't feel like he's just fully relaxed in his own indigenous country. He's always, he's not sure whose toes he's stepping on. He doesn't know what's what. So that's the concept of ger, coming from his lack of stability and peaceful settling. Okay. So that's another pshat why the Vayeshev Yaakov, that the fact that he settled is an integral part of the story. Od efshar, another explanation. V'yikasher hakatuv gam im hakodem. And this is actually going to fit in with the end of the previous parasha, which is the story of Esav's family and his lineage of his kingdom. V'hu laholot ki ma ben b'chirat Esav le'b'chirat Yaakov. This is to underline and to point out the difference between Esav's choice and Yaakov's choice. It says that Esav went to another land away from his brother Jacob. Or Pirshuzal, and the rabbis explained, Ki Amar Esav, Halo lanu nachalai eretz Canaan, v'chov hu galut Mitzrayim. So Esav, he worked out that if he wants to live in the land of Israel, he must not only receive the benefits, he has to also pay the price. Just like anyone that inherits his father's estate, if he wants to be able to get the assets, he also has to pay off the debts. So Esav said, I don't want to live in the land of Israel, because even though it's an asset, it comes along with a heavy debt, which is to go to Galut. And Esav said, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm prepared to just call it quits. I'm going to bounce and leave you with the debt and the assets. Al-Ken vayelech. Esav chose to leave Mikol Tchum Haaretz, away from the entire land of Israel. Lebali Glemitzrama, so he shouldn't have to be included in the exile to Egypt. Ach Yaakov hefech. Yaakov is the other way around. Ki bachar begerut sheichal bo Yitzchak. He even chose and was prepared to live on a personal level, to live in the land of Israel as a foreigner, and in order that should be counted as exile. Al-Ken ki bachar shebezaro yitkayim ger Yitzchak. He wanted to choose to be the lineage that receives the debt and has to pay it off of being a foreigner, being exiled. And why did he do that? Be'eretz Canaan, because he did that because he wanted to receive the inheritance of Eretz Canaan. Bishvil Eretz Canaan. Ki aporeh chovaviv, yoresh nachlato. Whoever was prepared to pay the debt, he gets the assets. V'zehu omro be'eretz Canaan. This is Moshe says a very nice pshat. V'yeshav Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv. Yaakov was prepared to take upon himself the punishment of exile, the debt of exile, be'eretz megurei aviv, by living in the same unfixed foreign manner as his father did. Why did he do that? Be'eretz Canaan, in order to receive Eretz Canaan, for the sake of Eretz Canaan. And this is why it says another bet. It says another bet. It could have, if this isn't the pshat, it's a bit difficult why it says V'yeshav Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Why does it not say V'yeshav Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv Canaan? Because we already said Eretz. Or Vayeshav Yaakov be'eretz Canaan megurei aviv. But we're saying here is that Yaakov chose exile in order to receive Eretz Canaan. Od yitachen, another explanation of what Vayeshev is connected to Yosef and connected to Esav's lineage. V'hu ki ba Torah lamdeinu dat kama v'chama tzarich lizaher adam al shlom beto. The Torah wants to teach us a message. What's the message of the Torah? The Torah wants to teach us how important it is to have peace in one's family, in one's home, and in one's immediate surroundings. Kira alav shviv esh kina betoch beito. A small spark, a small fire of jealousy inside in a person's home, which will cause hatred, is worse mikol machnot sonav and shemil chamto. They're way worse when you had to have enemies and fighting and strife within your family and closest people than to have strong, powerful enemies outside. Because why? Think about how strong and how powerful the kingdoms of Esav were right outside Eretz Israel, right in Seir. And that was fine. Yaakov managed to live peacefully from that perspective. That wasn't the reason he wasn't peaceful and tranquil. Nobody feared them. Even though he wasn't fully settled because he had the foreign alienness of the locals, but that was also not so much of an issue. He managed to figure it out. But often he had two enemies in different levels of enemyhood. He had Esav and he had the local Canaanites, Alufei Esav the Shavei Aretz. Besides the fact that he's in Eretz Canaan, which the way to live in Eretz Canaan is always through suffering. As long as there was peace in his home, everything was fine. Yaakov remained peaceful. He settled. He had shalva. He had tranquility. Why? Because there was peace in the home. So even though there's enemies on all sides, we're fine. But when did the troubles begin? When did the problems happen? When the hatred and the jealousy and the fighting began at home, that's when the problems began. That's when the tranquility and the peacefulness and the presence of mind suddenly left him. As the following describes. So that Ramosh is telling us a very powerful message to describe the difference between the end of last parasha, which describes Esav's powerful army as an enemy, and Vayeshev Yaakov Be'eretz Canaan. He had the people of Canaan also that didn't like him very much. But this was all fine. He's still Vayeshev. When did the problems begin? Only in the next pasuk, which talks about the brothers fighting. And this actually seems a very powerful message for today's day and age. What we're having now in Israel is that the enemies from outside, Baruch Hashem, with great mercy and the Musar and Nefesh of the soldiers, were managing to get out. But it's the infighting, the fighting between us, that's the problem. And that's really something that's unfortunately very big problem nowadays, and we have to find out how to fix it and really we can only just work from our personal selves and start on a grassroots level. Everybody can try and love more Jews around them, because we can't fix the world's problems, and these political issues seem way too deep to fix overnight. But what we can do is love our friends, love our neighbors, love our family, and that can hopefully sort our problems out from within. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should only have peace and tranquility in this world and in the next. B'ezrat Hashem will continue next time. Okay. Welcome back. We're doing Parashat Vayeshev in the Alshech Academy, and we're going to be learning the story of Yosef Atzadik's dreams, the strife between the brothers, and what exactly went on here, because this is one of the most difficult to understand stories, where we finally have a beautiful family, the holy family of Yaakov. There's no Esavs, there's no Yishmael. It's beautiful 12 holy children. Kulam ahovim, kulam berurim. They're all holy, mitzato shlema. But all we see is fighting, jealousy, hatred, and it seems very difficult to understand. And Ramosha is going to try and give us a little bit of perspective on how to view these stories and how to understand what went down and how it all unfolded. So B'ezrat Hashem, in the zchut of the Holy Alshech Kadosh, we will merit to learn the secrets of the Torah and connect to the stories of our forefathers in order to know how to live and how to learn Torah. So let's see. Ela toldot Yaakov Yosef. The pasuk says Yosef was 17, etc. He brought snitchings to his father. His father liked him more than the other brothers, and they hated him, and they had the dreams, etc., etc., etc. So Ramosha is going to first, as he does, professionally break down the psukim and observe the idiosyncrasies and the seemingly superfluous and psukim that need to be broken down and uncover the deeper secrets that are hiding behind these little points of contemplation. So the first question Ramosha asks is Ele Toldot Yaakov. These are the children of Yaakov. What do you expect to hear right after that? Reuven, Shimon, Levi. But instead, Ele Toldot Yaakov. Who are the children of Yaakov? Yosef. Right? Most glaring question in the world. Why didn't we mention all of the children? Number two, Lama Modieni Shaya bin 17 shana v'shaya roeh techav batzon. Why is it important to know that Yosef was 17? Why is his age important? We don't usually see the Torah mentioning people's ages. And also it says that he was a shepherd. How is that important to know in the context of the story of the brothers fighting and the dreams, etc.? Number three, Amro Batzon. It says, Vuhu ro'eh et echav hatzon. The pasuk says that he would go with his brothers and he would shepherd the sheep with his brothers. But it doesn't say that. It says, et echav. He would shepherd his brothers, batzon, with the sheep. Right? So it seems like the shepherding is not on the sheep, it's on the brothers. So this is hinting to Yosef's relationship with his brothers while they were going out together to shepherd the sheep. Number four, Why is it important to mention that he was friendly to the children of Bilah and Zilpah? V'chen amra ve'et b'nei Zilpah. It says et b'nei Bilah ve'et b'nei Zilpah. Another et. Shaya da yomar et b'nei Bilha v'Zilpah. It seems to be separating Bilha and additionally Zilpah, like two separate statements. What does that mean? Number 5. Amra l'shei aviv. It says they were the children of Bilah, the children of Zilpah, who were the wives of Yaakov. The wives, obviously, we know they were the wives of his father. What's specifically mentioning by referring to them as the wives of his father? Number 6. Sorry, Echi kushar amro vayave Yosef el hakodem. The pasuk says that he used to shepherd his brothers. He would hang out with the sons of the maidservants. And the pasuk finishes off. What's the last thing in that list? He brought the tales of the bad things that his brothers did to his father. How is this like a complete scenario that comes one after the other? How do they connect? Describing the scene at the time. Number 7. Amrav Yisrael have lama karo Yisrael. Until now we said vayeshev Yaakov, ela toldot Yaakov. Suddenly, when it mentions Yaakov loving Yosef, it says v'Yisrael havet Yosef. Why are we suddenly jumping into Yisrael? And it's interesting because as we now go in from last week's parasha, when Yaakov was given the additional name Yisrael, we'll constantly see both names interchanging. And now we have Yisrael being used, in a seemingly random way, where we'll use the name Yaakov and then suddenly we're introducing Yisrael. Number 8. Number 8, please. Says the Rav Moshe, Amrov yiru echav ki im aviv ha'heva ma pesha Yosef al zeh sheyisnu ota. The pasuk says, when the brothers saw that his father loved him more than the other brothers, they hated him. And they couldn't get a straight word to him. So the question is, why would they hate him if his father loves him? What can he do? He has to make himself unlikable to his father? Well, his father happens to like him, so why? That's not really a fair reaction to the fact that his father likes him. So it says Rav Moshe as follows. Oh yo 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 yo, oh yo 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 yo. Achine lahasir to'eh milev. We have to. The psukim here have an agenda. The psukim are trying to help us gain perspective and be able to understand and relate to the story that just happened, that's going to unfold in front of us, of the brothers and Yaakov and Yosef and Yehuda and all of these Shvatim. They see that anyone that pays attention listens to this story, the story of the Shvatim, the story of Yaakov Avinu, Hakadosh, Avim, Ba'Elohim. How can anybody try and make sense of this? So the pasuk is trying to help us be able to see the story in a positive light and to understand and to really try and go into the events as they folded out, as they unfolded, and as they happened and transpired, in order for us to be able to get a real understanding of the emotions and energies that went on between them. Anybody that sees this, how can he not be dumbfounded and just completely astounded how this can happen? How can a holy one like Joseph repeat Lashon Hara? How can he go and say Lashon Hara to his father? The question is equally on Yaakov for accepting Lashon Hara. What about the Shvatim, the holiest of the holiest? They should hate their brother. They should be jealous of him. They should want to kill him. They really wanted to kill him. They threw him into a pit with snakes and scorpions. When they finally took him out, because they had a guilty conscience, Macharu l'Ishmaelim, they sold them off to some Arabs. Is this the acts of truthful people, of real upright human beings? It seems very strange. This would give room for a mistaken, simple fool to have negative thoughts on the offspring of Yaakov. Maybe they weren't such holy people. Maybe they had issues. They had some negative character traits. Maybe they'll say, okay, the apple doesn't fall from the tree. Yaakov was an exception, but they are more like Esav. They take after their uncle. Or or someone else we can compare them to. Maybe we'll compare them to Yishmael or to Terach. Meaning, if somebody reads the story here without the belief that the Shvatim were holy, we can come to a mistaken conclusion and say that these people were just thugs, merciless, petty kids that just fought over attention and stupid stuff. So it's very important, says Rav Moshe, to understand that the pasuk is trying to give us perspective and wisdom into the story that happened here. He's saying lashon hara, and they're being angry and jealous and hateful. So maybe they won't actually hold against Yaakov so much, because at the end of the day, Yaakov Avinu, even though he didn't want to receive the lashon hara, he didn't want to believe it, but Rav Moshe brings a midrash that says that there's a Brit Kruta. He says here on the bottom there isn't such a midrash really, but it seems to be based on a different Gemara or a midrash that says that this is a fact that Hashem made in the world. Lashon hara sheyukubal shemetz menhu, that even somebody who completely goes against the information he was told, and he's completely refusing to accept it as truth, some aspect of it is going to have to penetrate, and he'll have to be affected by the information that he was told. So we're saying that maybe Yaakov didn't fully accept. He obviously, denied it and said, no, I know them, they're holy, they don't do these negative things. But it's going to have some kind of subconscious effect on his view of them. And therefore, it makes sense that he loved Yosef more, because of the fact that the other ones he got a bad negative influence from Yosef about who they were. So therefore, we can kind of excuse Yaakov. But halo gam leval yishar levav yechashvu shelo karaui leish kamohu. So even though you can't really blame Yaakov all the way, but anybody that doesn't want to believe in the beauty and the holiness of Yaakov will still say. So because Yaakov isn't such a holy person, he's got these issues. He's affected by lashon hara. So now what the pasuk is going to do for us is to make sure we don't have these perspectives of the holy forefathers. So what we're going to say as follows: Alken kal kala advar me'ele ba Torah Hashem t'minu v'tamar. The Holy Torah, the complete Holy Torah, is coming to tell us the following: Ma yachshavun al zera Elohim dimyon el bnei bliya al chalila. You can't compare these holy children to bad thugs and Esav's family. Ki halo ele shehem Yosef v'chol echav ha'amorim b'pasuk. Ele toldot Yaakov. These are the children of Yaakov. V'lo bevav. It doesn't say ve'ele toldot yemar aleim. It doesn't say ve'ele. Ve'ele would mean that it's a continuation of Esav's family tree. L'hosif al shel Esav hamurim pasha kodem ki kulo zera me'ed. That's why it doesn't say ve'ele. It says ele. This is the introduction telling me that it's a cutoff point. Until now we spoke about Esav, and that was the negative genes. But from here, Ele told Yaakov, this is a whole different story. These people are Zera Emet, they're holy, they're pure, which is why we need to understand now, how can such holy, pure people act in such ways? V'shema tomar, halo masem bilti tovim. If I judge them by their actions, I don't see them as such holy people, with so much tattletaling and gossip and hate and jealousy. Says Ramosha, Al tachbid ashmotam. Don't be so harsh on them. Ki hineni modiacha geder ashmat chol chelek mehem al rishon rishon. Ramosha says, I'm going to take you through all of the details here in the story, one by one, and we're going to see how the events aren't as bad as you think. Umatchil Yosef, and we're starting with Yosef. Va'omar, and the pasuk says, Yosef ben Shvas Shana. Yosef was 17 years of age. Ubo shnei gerishin, the ta'amim, the melody above on this letter, on this word, is Yosef has a shnei gerishin, which is the two. I think it's a high pitched tune. K'magbia kol va'omer. Yosef, I don't remember the tune exactly, but it's a high-pitched announcement of mentioning Yosef's name. And Rav Moshe is actually using the Ta'amim. I've never seen this before, but he's using it in the context to describe, don't you think that Yosef is the way you think of him? Because based on what you're seeing in the story. I'll tell you why. All he is 17 years of age. He's young. Nar varach, haya ro'eh, umanhik et echav, umadricham biyotam batzon mirov chochma v'kisharon asher bo. Right? So he says a very interesting thing. The Rashbam says, and this is the way the Ramosha goes here as well, is that haya ro'eh et echav batzon means that Yosef was very talented, he was very patient, and he was dedicated to helping his brothers learn the trade of shepherding. It seems that he had more talent than them, and he would actually shepherd them in how to shepherd. So he would go out to the field and he'd say, guys, let's do this today. So Reuven is going to have the sheep till 10 o'clock. He's going to take them down there. Shimon, you're going to come and take over and take them to the stream down there for during the afternoon shade. Yisachar and Zavulun are going to come. And then, so basically he was the captain of the ship when it came to shepherding. And that was a little bit of a potentially seemingly condescending thing, but Rav Moshe is going to explain to us that it wasn't out of ego or willing to control. He was actually being helpful and patient, trying to teach his brothers the skill that he had. When they were home, then Yaakov was leading the group. It was only out when they were out with the sheep, then Yosef led them. So if Yosef was such a helpful, kind, caring brother that took the time to help them, and he was just young as well, so you're not going to expect him to be such a person that would bring gossip to his father. So you can say, why are you interpreting his leadership out in the field to be an act of patience and kindness? Maybe maybe it was just an inflated sense of ego that made him feel like he's the one in charge and he knows best. It wasn't due to wisdom and talent. Says the pasuk, I'll convince you, I'll prove to you that really he was humble. And it was just out of kindness that he spent time teaching them how to shepherd. He was actually a servant of the children of Bilhah. He acted to them as if he was their butler, or at their service. Right? A nar, what's a nar? When you have like a child at call, just, kid, come bring me my thing, do my thing. So Yosef actually served his brothers, and not only just his brothers, even the downtrodden slave, the maidservant children. And the reason he did that was because he didn't disrespect them and degrade them as children of the servants. Rather, he saw their mothers as actual true wives of his father. And now Ramosh is adding another thing. That would be cool. That would be nice if it was only his mother's servant, Bilha, that would be one level of humility. But it wasn't just his mother's maid servant that he was respectful to. Also the Bnei Zilpah, which was completely not related to him at all. Not only when they were all four together, then he was respecting the children of Bilhah already, so he respected them as well. No, even if they were separately, if they weren't together at the time, he would still respect the children of Zilpah, even though there's no reason he should, if he feels himself, if he's actually full of his own ego. So this is proof that what? That he was obviously humble and kind. And this is why it says in the pasuk, Et b'nei bilhava, et b'nei zilpah. Right? One of the questions before was, why does it say et separately? To point out that even if it was just Zilpah, the children of Zilpah on their own, he would still respect them and serve them and give them equal status, if not more than the others. V'shema tomar, so now the question comes, if he's such a kind, patient, loving brother, now it's even more difficult to understand. Why did he bring the gossip to his father? If he cared about them, why would he not be scared of repeating Lashon Hara? You shouldn't find this that difficult. He only repeated the gossip, the slander to his father. Why? Because he felt his father should know this and he should try and reprimand them. That his father should now be warned and be aware of his children's behavior. And he should be able to guide them in the right, proper way, like a father guides his children. But Yosef was very careful not to spread any rumors or any truths about his brothers to anyone else. A normal slanderer, gossip spreader, is looking to damage a person's reputation. He's looking to defame a person. So if you want to do that, then you would do that, spread it out, go to bars, go to shuls and start speaking about the person. But he didn't do that. All he did was went to his father, who he felt has the responsibility and the ability to guide his brothers, and that shows that it was pure intent of Yosef's part to repeat what he saw. This is somewhat of a mitigation or an interpretation, a positive spin on Yosef's role in the whole story. So we're saying, like, obviously we understand that it's an interesting event, but we're giving it context. We're giving the context the fact that he was young, that he had talent, and he was patient enough and kind enough to teach that talent and be present, and he didn't just say, "Oh, I don't got time for you guys. I'm good at this. You're not good at it. So just figure it out." He was there. He was kind, but it wasn't out of ego, because whenever a different type of kindness was needed, i.e., respecting and serving his brothers who were children of maidservant, he did that as well. So he was always prepared to serve. He was there to protect and to serve, to be there for the brothers, and so much so he even wanted to be there for them spiritually. So he wanted to also bring their inadequacies to his father, so his father can guide them and help them mend their ways. So this is really the perspective of the Torah, giving us all of this information of what happened in the field with the sheep, what happened with how he respected his less fortunate brothers, in order to give context to the slander and gossip he brought to his father. And this is also why another of the questions we asked was, why does the Torah start El Toldot Yaakov Yosef? Why only talk about Yosef? Because we're starting off with the list of people that we need to mitigate their actions and explain them, and the first one on the list is Yosef. Now, next we're going to move on to Yaakov. And the question is, why did Yaakov accept the slander? We don't accept Lashon Hara from one unless there's two witnesses. If one person comes, it's considered Lashon Hara. There's the famous story of Zigud in the Gemara. Where is the story of Zigud that came to the Beit Din, and he said that Tuvia sinned, and he told them the sin that he did, and the Beit Din came and took out lashes, and whooped Zigud. And he said, Tuvia chata v'Zigud mangid. If Tuvia sinned, why is Zigud getting the lashes? And they explained to him, because if you're a single witness coming to say, wait, ain't there something negative about someone else, that's not really witness here. It's because you can't use it. So it's lashon hara. So now the question comes into Yaakov, and Ken Yaakov ka'ashem shekibel adiba. Yaakov remains guilty, in theory, the fact that he received the gossip. Shal Ken, where do we see that he actually received the gossip? Seemingly, is because why did he love Yosef more than the other brothers? Obviously, because he accepted that his other brothers were questionable, were behaving in bad ways. Shal Ken avo yoter kol banav. He respected Yosef's integrity more than the others. So it seems that Yaakov didn't just take what Yosef said with a pinch of salt and then do his own investigation or speak to the brothers. He actually seems to accept it without being skeptical. And he brings in the Gemara, says in Nida that lashon hara, that you mustn't accept it, but you can be cautious about it. If somebody tells you to be careful of this person, this person's got this problem that you need to be aware of with the money, whatever, you're not allowed to accept it as fact, but you have to be cautious about the fact that it may be true, and therefore be vigilant in dealing with that person. So Yaakov, it seems, didn't accept it as a cautious potential truth. He accepted it as fact, and which is why he didn't like the brothers as much as he liked Yosef. So how can Yaakov do such a thing? V'hu b'som lev, says Moshe. Now let's go to the next pasuk. The next pasuk says, V'Yisrael. What about Yisrael? This also has a tam of revia on top of the pasuk, which is V'Yisrael. Why did he accept the slander? You want to blame him for it? Al taseken. You should know that this is not a simple person we're talking about here. We're not talking about Yaakov. We're talking about Yisrael. What does Yisrael mean? The word Yisrael can be broken down into Yasharel. Klomar b'yasher levav haya masher havet Yosef. The fact that he loved Yosef wasn't coming from a dark, twisted place. It was coming from a pure, straight-hearted place. Lal kibla hadibachar. It didn't come because he took the slander as fact. Rak al kiben zakunim hula. He was a child from his older years. But what does that mean? Ben zakunim, it doesn't say ben zaken. It says ben zakunim, which is plural. It has a double meaning. Echad kamashma. He was born when he was older than the other brothers. And another meaning is shekana chokhmah. Ze zakunim is ze kona chokhmah. As the Gemara says in that zaken really. Spiritually or psychologically, we talk about an elder, it doesn't mean in years, it means in wisdom. And yet Yosef was a very wise son, and as we saw in Rashi, everything Yaakov learnt in the yeshiva of Shem and Ever, he was taught to Yosef. And as the Ramban puts it, he taught Yosef all the secrets, all the sadot. And the Medrash brings that the Pasim was the secret of the 22 letters of the Torah, which are considered the garments of Hashem's wisdom in the world. So Yosef was actually a very wise Talmid Chacham, and that's why Yaakov loved him, because Yaakov saw him as a continuation of the wisdom of Avraham and the great secrets that the Avot were able to grasp and perceive in Hashem's ways. And Yosef was found to be one of capable of actually receiving these secrets and knowing how to internalize them and understand them, which is what made Yaakov love Yosef, but nothing to do with the slander. So here Moshe has an interesting explanation of why he gave him the Ketonet Basim and why it wasn't such a big deal. Because he says the Ketonet Basim, we imagine it is like some kind of beautiful robe that he wore on top. But Rav Moshe is saying actually a kutonet is usually an undergarment. As we know in the Kohen Gadol, he had a kutonet, on top of it he had a me'il, and on top of that was the ephod. So it seems to be like almost an undershirt, or at least a shirt that has on top of it, a jacket and then a coat. So it wasn't necessarily something that he was flaunting and just going around with this like fiery, cool jacket, like a heavy metal some kind of situation. But it was just some kind of token of his love to him, of his student being his prime student, and he wasn't necessarily rubbing it in their faces. It's the most undergarment, the underest garment. It's hardly noticeable. As the pasuk said later on, asher alav. It says they took the shirt later on when they sold him. It says ketonet pasim asher alav, which means it was on his flesh, because it was the lowest layer of garment that was on his body. He brings here from the Midrash that Yosef at the time was wearing 4 different garments. He was wearing a pinas, I'm not sure what that is, some kind of coat. Kutonto is a chaluk, ketonet hapasim is a pargod, asher alav zu famalnaya shelo. So it seems to be that he's saying that this was like the second garment. There's the pinas is the first, and then the kutanto is the second layer, and there was 2 more layers on top of it. So basically, what Rav Moshe is telling us is that Yaakov loved Yosef because of his wisdom, because of his Torah capabilities, and obviously we know Yaakov had some deep wisdom to share. While he was meditating as a shepherd for 20 years, I'm sure he received some great wisdom. And he was also sitting in the tents before that, in the tents of Shem Ve'ever, and then he was for 14 years. He didn't leave the tent, didn't sleep. So Yaakov was saturated with the wisdom of the secrets of the Torah, because they didn't have Mishnah Berurah back then. They didn't have like Rabbi Akiva Eiger. They were dealing with like the secrets of life and contemplating the deepest realities of Hashem's revelations. And you got to find the right student for that. These types of Kabbalistic, it wasn't even Kabbalistic, it was just like truth at the time. Not everybody is able to receive it. So Yaakov, when he found Yosef as a suitable candidate for this, he found extra love, favor in his eyes. And he gave him a shirt, an undergarment shirt, in order to express that, but it wasn't there to make the point. It wasn't like as if like he was saying, oh, I hate you guys, I'm going to love him so much, and let him rub it in your face every time he walks past. Okay, so now we've done, what have we done? We've managed to understand Yosef, we've managed to understand Yaakov. But what about the brothers? If Yosef is just a kind, loving brother, and Yaakov doesn't accept the slander that he tells, so why the brothers? So now we have to understand, till now, we understood the brothers the best, because the father is being unfair by giving him extra attention and extra gifts and showing his favoritism. Yosef is taking gossip to his father, so we understood their anger. But now that we've mitigated and understood Yosef and Yaakov, now the question is on the brothers. So says the pasuk, "Ata tichbad yoter hashmatam," says Rav Moshe. "Ata amarta el toldet Yaakov." So you're telling me that these children are all holy, they're all children of Yaakov, and they're not continuation of the Esav story. So then why are they acting in such ways? Why are they so jealous? Why are they so hateful? Because a little bit of silk, because he got a bit of a silk shirt, that's what they're going to start killing and hating and fighting for. Kamosh Amru, as the rabbis say. Right? The rabbis say that a person should never make a difference, treat any of the children differently from other children, because for a small amount of wool or silk, whatever it was, is all of this mess happened because of a little bit of a tiny show of favoritism. So that's why now we're moving on to the third pasuk. Vayeru Echav. Now we're explaining the brothers. Now, what's about the brothers? How do we explain the brothers' behavior? So now we're going to see the following. Just because they saw him with this special shirt, they should kill him like that. It wasn't the shirt that they got to them, that they were just jealous of the shirt. Shimken hayalem lekaneh v'lo lisno. They should have been jealous. And at this stage in the Torah, it doesn't say jealousy. It says they hated him. It says v'yisneu oto. Now, hate is not the reaction we're expecting when somebody is jealous. So that's why we have to understand what's going on here. Achu ki ra'u ki oto ahev avihem. They saw that the father loves Yosef more than the rest. Chashashu pen kibel dibatam ra'a. They started suspecting that all of this gossip that he's been mentioning to his father has been accepted as fact. Therefore, they are all considered unrighteous in their father's eyes. Yosef is the only tzaddik. That's why they hated him, because they said suddenly, wow, our father, our great teacher and master and leader, is thinking negatively of us because he had to go and spread stuff about us. That's why they hated him, because they felt that was the reason for Yaakov's special love to him. So maybe the question would be, why don't they judge their father favorably, and understand that the reason he loved them was kiben zakunimhu, Holy Alshech Shul. They should have been able to understand that maybe the reason the father's loving him is because of his wisdom, because he's the most suitable student. You want to say that he's the youngest child? He's not the youngest child, because Binyamin is even younger. So why doesn't Yaakov give him this beautiful shirt? The fact that he can't understand it based on the fact that he was the youngest, because he wasn't the youngest, that's why they were convinced that the hate is coming, that the extra love from the father is coming because of the slander and gossip. So let's continue the Holy Alshech Kadosh. Od yitachen ki milamala hechel b'tnatzlut achav. We already began in the second pasuk. This is a different way of understanding the pasukim. That the mitigation and the understanding of the brothers begins already in pasuk bet. So how do we understand that? Ki amar re'una ki lo litnaseh Yosef aleim sneuhu. We can realize that the brothers didn't hate him because they were jealous or didn't like his personality or felt that he was trying to be better than them. Because already in the beginning of the pasuk, when he was teaching them how to shepherd, we see already that they didn't hate him then, and even really after all the gossip, they still didn't hate him, right? If you read the pasuk, it says, as we learned, that means that he was teaching them how to shepherd, and it says, "Vayavei Yosef edibatam ra'el avihem." They still didn't hate him then. It was only later when they saw that Yaakov loved him more than the rest, only then did they begin to hate him. So that shows that they weren't just affected emotionally and their ego was bruised from his behavior. They were tolerating him. They accepted him the way he's behaving, but only when it got out of hand could they not anymore continue ignoring it. And why didn't they hate him in the beginning when he told all the gossip? Because they just said, obviously our father's not believing him. Our father doesn't believe Lashon Hora Stam. But they only got angry at him when they realized the father's loving him more than the rest, which is when they realized that it might be that the father actually did accept Lashon Hora. Ki alo ben 17 shana haya ro'eh et habatzon mitnaseh aleim ro'eh otam manigam. He was acting in a way of controlling leadership already in fields, in while he was shepherding them. Ki alo ben 17 shana haya ro'eh et habatzon. And they didn't bother them. The fact that they saw that when it came to the maidservant's children, he acted nicely, so that they realized that he's not acting out of ego, he's acting out of humility. They weren't angry, they weren't jealous. And even after even after he gave over the gossip, they still weren't jealous. Only when he saw that he loved him more than the rest, then they said, "Oh, must be our father did accept his gossip." And then suddenly this was the straw that broke the camel's back, and they couldn't. The main issue was that they couldn't bear the fact that their father, the holy tzaddik, will see them as sinners, and that was something they couldn't deal with. Even though they hated him, they didn't say anything bad. Rak el heder dabrol shalom. This is actually an early stage of hate, when you don't feel the need to say anything, to do anything. It's just you can't have a straight word with this person. Like anything that this person's trying to say or do or whatever, you suddenly just like always interpret it negatively. If someone that you love, even if they do something not so nice, you'll interpret it as a slap on the back from a friend. But someone that you can't stand, even if they're saying something nice, you're like, where's this going? What do you want? Even if she's like, big smile, good morning, you're like, okay, what? Right? So that's when that they just couldn't get any peaceful, nothing could pacify them. They couldn't have any normal conversation. But that still wasn't anything positively hatred. They just couldn't stand each other. But however, once the hatred found its place to begin to germinate, then suddenly it started becoming more and more. It became more and more and became multiplied and started becoming a serious hate. And then that happened specifically through the first dream, when he started insinuating that he wants to rule over them. And eventually, this led to also actually trying to kill him, and which was also what they believed was the right thing to do, as we're going to see later on, said Ramosha. But that is the process of how this all played out. That it was a gradual process, and it didn't come from just a natural hate without any reasoning. The main point that we're trying to say, says Ramosha, is they're all holy, they're all complete, they're all special people. They weren't just any simple, sinful people. And why did Hashem actually feel that it was some kind of sin? It's only because Hashem is very stringent with his holy tzaddikim. וכן עכשיו כיוונו רבותינו לצאת התנדלות בעד השבטים במאמרם במדרש. And now Moshe is going to introduce an interesting midrash that says that the ketonet pasim, you can be read pas yam. Al tikre pasim ela pas yam. This is the wording of the midrash. Look at the wonders of Hashem. Lama vayisnu oto. Why did the brothers hate him? In order that Kriyat Yamsuf should happen, the sea should be split. That's the midrash. So this seems a very strange midrash. What does anything have to do with the other? Three questions. First of all, the midrash is asking, like, as if you don't know why they hated. We know why they hated them, because the brothers, they hated him. The slander, the father loved them more. So the pasuk is quite clear why he hated them. Number two is they have to understand this midrash. It says milat pasim. So the question is, if the way we're understanding the word pasim is what the midrash is saying here, that pasim means pasyam, he split the sea. So the question should be, why did Yaakov give him a ketonet pasim in order to get to the split of the sea, which is pasyam? Why are we going to talk about the brothers, which is already the result of him having the shirt? They didn't make the shirt. And another question was Moshe. Obvious question was like, do you really want to tell me that when they were hating Yosef, they said, "Oh, I'm hating him because that's going to split the seat one day. Like, what? How's that make any sense? Achine l'kshalom ki pasim ein Hashem shum min meshi. He's asking the following: why does the Midrash feel the need to reinterpret the word pasim? It says because what is pasim? What does it even mean? It's not like the name of some kind of silk. Or davar sh'osim mimenu levushay michlol. It's not a type of material made out of a certain fine material. You say ketonet pasim. He made a silk shirt. No. So what is pasim? What does pasim even mean? It's not clear actually in the Mefarshim whether it means it had lines or some kind of hem, or it had some kind of it was made out of wool. Rashi brings, but the word pasim is actually not such a common word in this context. So that's why the Midrash says pasyam. What does that mean, pasyam? That in the merit of Yosef, they split the sea. As it says, vayam ra'a vayanos, the Midrash says, the sea saw and escaped. Mara, what did it see to he escaped? Aronosh Yosef, he saw the tomb or the coffin of Yosef. V'hu ki hu midah keneged midah, b'zchut vayanas vayetzeh achutza. So because Yosef later on the parasha ran and escaped and fled the scene with Potiphar's wife, Nas hayami panav, the sea also fled in front of him. This is learned from Gzera Shava, the word vayanos. So now we're going to explain the Midrash. Amr lachu chazu. Loma hine Midrash hazu lamadnu tirutz or kisha achad. V'hu lama yisnu oto ve'inyan. Ki asher beyado avonot. If somebody is sinful, lo yipaleh ba'chet al yado. Ki avira goret hareva. The nature of sin is that sin brings further sin. The rich get richer and the sinful get more sinful. Ach asher hu naki, one who is clean from sin, halok mo zar nechshav. It seems very strange that he should fall into sin, as we see in the rabbis' writings that even the animal of a tzaddik doesn't sin. Right? Afilu behem tan shel tzaddikim don't sin. Tzaddikim atznon lakolchken, as the story we know of Pinchas ben Yair and Rechanina ben Dosa, right? That they didn't want to move and do any sins. So what's going on here? And as the rabbis say in the pasuk Tzofer Asher Tzaddik, that Hashem helps the tzaddikim not fall into sin, especially when he learns Torah. The Torah protects him from sin. So the question is, how did Hashem let the Shvatim fall into the sin of hating Yosef? Why didn't Hashem protect them? Why did Hashem allow them to have free choice to fall into the sin of this hatred? It says, Hashem was desperate for Yosef to be sold into Egypt. Why? But often in order that he should be found in a situation, find himself in a situation where he has to he had to flee away from the temptation to sin, and that will bring the zchut and the merit in order to bring the splitting of the sea. The reason that Hashem made that the brothers should have bechira, and He didn't protect them from sin as Hashem does. Hashem protects tzaddikim from sin. Why in this case did Hashem not protect the Shvatim from falling into the sin of hate? It's because Hashem wanted Yosef to be sold. Because Hashem wanted Yosef to be sold so he can fall into the nisayon of Potiphar's wife, and then that will cause Yosef to be able to have the merit to split the sea. This is an interesting thing actually, where I saw in the Ramchal on this subject of Yosef going into his Potiphar. A little bit off topic. I'm gonna finish with this. He says that Yosef, according to one explanation of the Gemara, it says that he came that morning to do his work, and the one opinion of the Gemara means that he basically relented. He was going to sin with the master's wife, and only then he saw the face of his father in front of him, and then he didn't do it. So Ramchal explains that the wife of Potiphar was the mother of Yosef's actual wife in the end, Osnat. So he actually saw that there was some kind of tikkun that needed to be done here, and specifically there is the concept of the Shekhinah being in Galut, and he felt, in his mind at the time, was that he'll be able to rectify the Shekhinah by being with her and taking out the sparks from her and then fixing whatever needs to be fixed. But when he saw Yaakov showed him that that's not the way to do it. When it comes to sexual immorality, there's no way you can go in there and come out stronger with more than what you came out. So it's always going to be the other way around. And that's what he took. That's what he took from Yaakov. And the Ramchal says a very, very powerful, scary thing from this. He says that now that happened, meaning now that Yosef had this thought of using sexual immorality or something that is not purely holy in order to fix things, to go into a place of sin, to come out seemingly in a better place. Now the Yetzer Hara has now this tool, meaning Yosef gave Yetzer Hara this tool to be able to fool people to start doing things that are questionable with the reasoning that this is going to somehow fix something. And now this is something that one of the tools the Yetzer Hara has to always give like a certain justification to things that are inherently wrong, in order to like, oh, it's for the good, for the greater good, etc. And that is obviously something that's one of the scariest things when you start making all these calculations, because sometimes it can just take us very far away. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should have a great Shabbat and merit to learn the Torah about the Shvatim and to connect to all the Tzaddikim. Thank you, Hashem. We'll see you next week.
Wow. Wow, I almost started to cry the way you gave that over about the way Yosef almost went in there.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We can't imagine what he went through there, like being a young man and not sure and holy and not like.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I know what I go through. I'm not any of those things.
Wow. Yeah. It's a vicious world. Put this back. Seems to be a Minion fan.
Yeah.
I guess what they say is if you don't want to go to shul.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Find a minion. Yep.
Yisrael Nachman CD.
Is this
How many
yours?
children? No, I mean it's Shlomo's thing.
Okay, I didn't see nothing.
How many children does Rav Torjman have? Did he have? I mean, does he have?
I don't know. I've got, I think, one daughter and two sons,
Right.
but I don't really know.
Take care, my friends.
Okay, have a good evening. Thank you for your teaching.
Shlomo didn't leave any checks, right?
No checks. No checks, no balances.